Get it started.
I got it.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to our work group meeting this morning. Those of you that may not know who I am, I'm Chad Allgood. I'm the director for the Division of Early Childhood Care and Development. I'm sorry we were a little bit later getting started this morning. We had some technical difficulties with Zoom. It's interesting when you log into some of these meeting platforms, it seems like they change options on you here or there sometimes. But anyway, nonetheless, I think we're finally ready to get started. So thank you. I appreciate your patience. Just to give you a little bit of background about what we're going to be doing today. Several weeks ago, we convened the two advisory councils. One is the Advisory Council for the Child Care Licensing Program, which is with the Mississippi State Department of Health, and the other is the Child Care Payment Program Advisory Council, which works with my division here at the Mississippi Department of Human Services. We brought everyone together to talk about our current licensing structure, and we, as a collective, the two groups came together, and we actually proposed a project to rewrite the regulations for child care providers in Mississippi, and to undertake this, we discussed splitting up into three phases, which the advisory councils both agreed would be the best way to move forward. So phase one, when we're working on rewriting the regulations, is going to focus on making sure that we're meeting the federal requirements, and that will be the framework, the primary framework for the licensing regulations. Then in phase two, we're going to get into regulations that are not necessarily mandated federally, but are things that are specific to Mississippi. And I know we're going to get into, of course, a good bit of discussion when we move into phase two. And then phase three, we're going to focus on how the overall program is administered. So we'll talk about the process for inspections, for investigations, monetary penalties, all of the other stuff that goes along with that in phase three. But again, for now, we are in phase one, so we are focusing on those. Those specific federal pieces. Joining me today, I have some members from my division. I have Lakeisha Bland, who is my division's liaison to Department of Health for the licensing program. We also have Crystal Carter and Crystal Murphy, who are both also helping work on this project, that are part of Division of Early Childhood Care and Development. And I know some of you may be wondering why in the world is Department of Human Services involving themselves with this project, because the licensing regulations are under the purview of the Department of Health. So that is certainly true. The Department of Health does in fact have the purview over the licensing regulations by state law. However, the monitoring of child care providers for specific health and safety topics, which is what we're covering in these work group meetings, Department of Human Services is required to include that in our state plan that we submit to the Federal Office of Child Care, and ensuring compliance with the monitoring of those health and safety topics is one of the requirements for CCDF and for us to continue to draw down the funding. Also, it bears noting that the child care licensing program itself is primarily funded through CCDF dollars that we give them through an interagency agreement. So, Department of Human Services, we do have a vested interest in making sure that the regulations are meeting not only the federal requirements, but we also want to make sure that the licensing regulations are helpful to our child care providers. And the whole goal of this project is to dive into the regulatory language, to look at anything that maybe that may need to be clarified, anything that may be in any situation where the regulations may contradict themselves. The goal here is to create a set of regulations that is easier to understand and to follow. And I will say, our partners at the Department of Health, they are on board with this project as well. This is also going to be incredibly helpful for the licensing officials because we want to take out any room for interpretation. We want it to be very clear what their requirements are. So today is about solutions. It's about looking at the language. It's about like I said, making the regulations more clear, easy to understand, easy to follow. So today, before I turn it over and get into the work, I did want to say we do have members. So in these with the federal requirements, we've broken down the topic, broken each work group down by topic. And today we do have our work group members, which I'm going to do a quick roll call here in just a second. So the way that it's going to go is when we are starting the process of diving into the language and looking at the regulatory language during the primary session, we do ask that members of the work group that is meeting today, we ask that they give the feedback. If you are not one of the work group members, we are going to have a public comment section, and if you join these other meetings, you'll see how it's going to go. But at the end of or after the primary session, we will have a public comment section, and we will allow anyone that is not a work group member to give feedback on anything that we talked about today. Today we're going to be focusing on child development training. So I'm just going to do a quick roll call. So work group members, when I call your name, if you'll just unmute yourself and just indicate that you're here, you can say here or present. Carol Burnett.
Here.
Hey, Carol. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Cindy McCarley. We have Cindy with us. She may join us in a little bit. Lori Rollison. Lori with us this morning. Okay. Jamila Taylor. Okay. Regina Harvey.
Here.
Hey, Regina. Good morning.
Hi.
Good to see you. And from Department of Health, Teresa Liggins.
Good morning.
Hey, Teresa. Thanks for joining us this morning. Okay. So those are our work group members. So like I said, when we get into at the beginning of this, we do ask that the work group members give their feedback. We'll let everyone else have an opportunity to give feedback during the public comment section. So we'll say, since we are focusing on the federal requirements during phase one, we are very fortunate in that our federal TA partners have been joining us for each of the work group meetings, and they're here to offer guidance and to help make sure that we're staying on target with those federal guidelines, but also it gives them a really great opportunity to hear feedback from you all. So we do appreciate that. Today, Lisa, she is our federal TA partner that is going to be getting us started. And again, just she's going to be helping as we go through the content, just to make sure, like I said, that we're not missing any of those key federal key requirements that we need to be doing. So with that being said, Lisa, I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you, Chad. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Okay, perfect. Well, good deal. I apologize for not being on camera today, but trust me, I've had eye surgery and it's not a pretty sight. So don't want to gross everyone out at 9:00 in the morning. So I am so happy to be with you guys. Again, my name is Lisa Brochard. I'm with the National Center, the Quality and Business Support Center. We work really close with the Office of Child Care. I'm a former CCDF administrator from your neighboring state of Louisiana. So excited to be with you guys. I currently now live in Georgia, moved there after I retired, and closer, just to be closer to the kids. But the Delta region is is near and dear to my heart, and so I am glad to be with you guys today. So let's just go through some of the slides and kind of set the stage for today. So what you see before you is basically what we call our three-legged stool. And for those of you who have been on previous work group meetings, this looks very familiar to you. But you have three areas that we're going to focus, or we have focused on, is standards and regulations, monitoring and training. And so today we're kind of going to do a little bit of combo of the standards or regulations as well as the training, since we're going to be talking about pre-service and orientation training and ongoing training, and then the standards of requiring those as well. So it's a little bit of a combo of those. What you see before you are the 11 health and safety topics. And so we've been through a lot of these already with the work group, but just wanted to put that before you and just so you can see those. With the pre-service and orientation training, that has to cover the standards within these 11 health and safety topics. So just wanted to state that. And then the ongoing training part, has a portion of health and safety in it. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But wanted to just, refresh your memory about what those 11 health and safety topics are. Now, looking at pre-service and orientation training, kind of the areas just to sort of pay attention to as far as CCDF requirements goes, is that it's an accessible pre-service or orientation training. It's to be completed within 3 months. It's for all caregivers, teachers, and directors. And again, it's on those 11 health and safety topics, those standards within those 11 health and safety topics. But pre-service and orientation also includes child development, including the 5 major domains of cognitive, social, emotional, physical development, and approaches to learning. So again, it's not only those 11, it includes that child development piece in the pre-service and orientation training. And again, that training, according to CCDF, has to be done within 3 months and for all caregivers, teachers, and directors. Next, looking at ongoing professional development. You'll see a lot of words before you, so I'm going to try to summarize this just really quick. But the key features of ongoing training are, it's an annual ongoing training, so that's a requirement there. Also a requirement on the number of hours that are required annually for caregivers, teachers, and directors. It needs to be appropriate to the setting and appropriate to the age of the children served. So that's, kind of at a high level. But that's, the high level requirements of the ongoing training. There's some, minute details in there, but that's the gist of it for the most part. Let's see. Some of the things that you guys are going to be talking about today are, again, the health and safety training pre-service visit. There's some rules regarding owners, directors, and designees, and the requirements related to the for those individuals, as well as the annual staff development contact hours. And then those rules this just shows you where they're located in your rule sets as 1.5.8 staff development. And I'm going to stop there. Any questions so far? Kind of what we'll be covering today. So if there are no questions, just real quick, just some things to consider, just to keep in the back of your mind as you're going through these particular rules, is to look at what are the current challenges for those particular rules. What makes it hard. Are there any rules that you feel are repetitive or need to be combined or condensed? Are there rules that are missing? I think you'll go through that in a minute. Implementation difficulties are the rules within the topic that you struggle or find difficult to implement. Are any rules that need some clarification? Do you find that they're confusing and they need to be clarified, to Chad's point earlier? And then suggestions for improvement. It's great. I think the team likes to know there's problems, but they love your solutions too. I have to say kudos to this team. They know that you guys live and breathe this every day. You're close to it. You're the experts. And so, you know how important health and safety is, and to have suggestions on how to implement those is very important to this group as well. And then any additional feedback that you want to share, is extremely helpful. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to take down the slide presentation. I'm going to turn it over. Lakeisha, you're leading this today?
I am, Lisa.
Okay. All right, I'm going to put the rules set in front of us real quick. So if y'all just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I I think I do have a question.
Sure.
Um, I I have a couple of thoughts about required training topics, but I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how we're going to go through this process and where those questions might be relevant to bring up. I I don't know if they're like high level at the outset or because they're not specific to the language that were in these documents that were sent to us in advance. So I'm not sure when to bring those issues up.
Hey, Carol, we'll go through the language that's currently there. Let's cover that. We may naturally get to your questions as we go through that, but if not, when we get through the language that's there, let's come back and let's talk about your other questions.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, just generally speaking, they have to do with, training regarding the operation of CCPP and training regarding materials in the classroom that reflect the families of the children enrolled, just generally speaking.
Okay, yeah. Let's go through the current language, and then, like I said, if we don't address those points, let's definitely do that before we move to the public comment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So the first item number that we're going to look at this morning is related to the CCDF requirement regarding health and safety training, pre-service orientation, which includes all 11 health and safety topics plus child development, including the major domains of cognitive, social, emotional, physical development, and approaches to learning. There's a note under the current rules that says requirements for pre-service training and CCDF health and safety topics was omitted in final February 26 regulations. Child development is only included in requirements for annual training. And so they went ahead and pulled a draft from a previous proposed document that showed what was in there. So we can look at this. I think the issue of why it may have been omitted was related to the beginning paragraph more so than the requirements, because the requirements are CCDF. I think it was just the language of all owners, directors, alternate directors, and additional child care staff must complete the health and safety training during pre-service and every 2 years thereafter that consists of the following topics. So let's look at that statement before we move into the topics, because pretty much those are the required training topics that have to be a part of that training. Can any of the work group members, do y'all have any comments about that
I
statement?
do. I was wondering if can the director themselves create this training? Can that be part of the 5 hours that they do for their staff, or does that have to be through Lift Ed or?
That the training has to be one, because we have to make sure that all the components are included in the training. So that is one that we would have to do through Lift Ed, because we do have to make sure that the training covers all those components. And the only way we can ensure that is if we have a standardized training that we're offering to providers.
Okay, well, I think it might need to say that then, that it's specific to Lift Ed or where we get this training, because like I already do this for my staff. I already have a pre-service training that goes through the 12 regulations or whatever. And so, I mean, I feel like I could use that one because I basically use the information that I've been given to create the training. So I was just wondering.
I think it's great that you reinforce it in your training with your staff, Regina, because again, the more times they can hear it, the more it's gonna gel with them and become more a part of their everyday activities in the center. So I think that that's great and a great ideal that you do it. But in terms of the requirements, we do have to make sure that they have it through us because that's the way we guarantee that everybody has that required training. Carol, I see you had unmuted. Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about, I mean, the last one listed is child development,
Mhm.
and under that are a lot of things. Cognitive development, social, emotional, physical. I mean, I'm just wondering if it's only one of these 12 components, how is that one adequate to cover all of those incredible early childhood domains? Particularly social emotional, which I think is a very important, I mean, all of them are important, of course, but um, I haven't been through the training myself, and so I don't know. I'm just wondering how that, just as one of a list of 12, um, it covers all of those domains in an adequate way. Do you know?
And Lisa, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The way that as I understand the requirement, this is by no means going to be recorded cover everything regarding child development, Carol, because just like you said, the domains themselves, that's very extensive information. The understanding, the development of both social and emotional, um, within children is a complex thing. This is really more intended to be like an orientation to what the domains are, and some examples. And, but I don't believe that this is the end all be all of what teachers should be um, um, uh, exposed to regarding developmental domains and child development as a whole. It's just kind of a
Mhm.
jumping off point for staff. For staff.
Yeah, I understand that. I think there are different places in the licensing regs that speak to what early childhood education preparation requirements are there for staff. And it just seems if we're going to require covering these various domains of early childhood, it would be, I mean, I know that LiftEd is offering a ton of resources for training and that sort of thing as follow-up, but I do think that that is such a huge one of these 12 things that in light of the uh, staff that might be coming into this work without the kind of early childhood education preparation, it would really be important to make sure that the support for all of those is adequately in there.
Isn't that what the note is saying though, that the child development is included in the requirement for the training, but it's not, I mean, it's not the depth of what you need to know. It's more of just, here it is, this is what's part of it. You need to know this part, but you're going to need to know more because it's deeper.
Yeah.
There's all these different, aspects of child development, but you can't learn that all in one sitting in a 2-hour class or whatever. That's just impossible to learn. So,
Right.
my suggestion also is part of the problem with my staff is getting getting the class. Like every time they go on to try to register for a class, they can't because it's already full. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, wouldn't it be more simple if each school was put on a rotation and they were required every 2 years to take this class? Whoever's on your staff has to take this class. This is your opening, November 3rd, 2026, 2028, 2030, you're taking this class, who's ever on your staff at that time, because it is very difficult to get in. It's very difficult to find a time that doesn't interfere with their classroom time. So I was just trying to figure out a better way, because this has been a constant thing that I hear not only in my own center, but in lots of other centers.
Yeah, so we're working on creating an on-demand version of the trainings that are here. We've had to go through a procurement process because it is online, is to make it on demand. We've had to go through Mississippi Department of Information Technology Services for an RFP. We're still in the process, but I do, I've also, for, 2-3 years, heard that it's been difficult to access the trainings. We tried a couple of different solutions, but thus far, none of that has really been as effective as we would like it to be. So moving to an on-demand online version that anyone can access at any time is the direction that we're going. And as far as the content of the training, this is something that our federal partners monitor very closely. For example, during our last monitoring visit, we actually had to walk through this training slide by slide, and our federal monitors, they gave feedback. So the content itself has to be very specific for this training. Now, of course, other trainings that we offer, across the state, we do try to offer a variety of different topics through LiftEd. The TA that folks are getting through Elevate. We also touch on child development and applying that in the classroom. Because like I said, this is a very broad domain. And this is essentially, here's the thing. Child development, there's something new that you can learn every single day. I've been in early childhood education 25 years, and there are still things that I learn, about things that you can do in the classroom, et cetera. So, but just for the purpose of this, we just need to focus on the content, or focus on this, the child development portion is what we're really zeroing in on today. But all of the suggestions that you're making are very good. We are taking note of that. I do think that, like, with the training, the way the training is done and all that kind of stuff, those are things that we would address outside of this work group, because that really gets more into the realm of what we do at NDHS with our coaches.
Great feedback. Any other thoughts or comments regarding the pre-service requirement? I'm not going to read through, because Lisa kind of covered those a while ago, of what the topics are that are required. I was more so wondering if anybody had any thoughts regarding the original, the all honors directors, alternate directors. We need to change the verbiage there regarding the requirements. But like I said, the topics themselves are what's required by the federal. So we can't really do a lot with that. So any other thoughts on the pre-service before we move on to ongoing annual training?
I heard you say that it needed to be done within 3 months, but I don't see it in the verbiage.
Okay. So we need to add that, completed within 90 days.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good catch. Thank you, Regina.
Yep, great catch.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna move down to annual ongoing training. Item number 2, health and safety training. We have Rule 1.58, staff development. Owners, directors, and director designees, before a new license to operate is issued, owners, directors, and director designees of the childcare facility shall complete mandatory training on courses covering childcare regulations, director orientation, and playground safety. If a new director or director designee is appointed by the childcare facility after the license issuance, the mandatory training courses shall be completed by such individuals within the first 6 months of appointment. In the sole discretion of the licensed agency, mandatory trainings may be waived upon the submission of documentation of the individual's prior completion of relevant training. Any,
Are childcare directors required to take this ever so often? Every 4 years,
there's been some discussion about that, because like Chad said a while ago, child development information is constantly changing. I don't think it would be a bad idea to add in their time frame because you have some directors who may have taken it 20 years ago, and we all know that what was going on in childcare 20 years ago is a lot different, and they do update the training periodically. So I don't think it'd be a bad idea to add a time frame on there.
I mean, I feel like every 5 years is fair.
Okay.
I don't know about everybody else, but
Carol, Teresa, you guys have any thoughts on that? Let's see what we have on.
No, I'll
No,
defer
I don't.
to Regina on that.
We may get comments from the floor a little bit later, but we'll tentatively put maybe adding a 5-year time frame for the training.
Well, this is Dolores Sewell. I think that's a good recommendation, but to me, as a owner and director, I would hope this is something we would have to stay abreast of anyway, just to run our centers.
there might be
And-
some soil in the graveyard. There's a wagon, a blue wagon.
Okay.
And it's good, but I'm just hoping that most directors are above having to be required to keep up with what goes on as far as rules, because these are things that we have to do every day. These are things that we have to require that our staff understand. And if we're doing the training for new staff, we're pretty much covering this over and over again.
Ms.
I
Sewell.
would agree with that too.
We can look at it. Lisa, can you put a note down to look to see what other states are doing in terms of requiring their ongoing training, if there's any mandatory trainings that they have any time limits on?
Yes, yes, I sure will. And is this specific for directors? Is that right, Lakeisha? The question.
This training is related to directors and director designees.
Mhm. Okay, yep, we can sure do that.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
Absolutely.
This is Dolores again. When we do the training for our new staff, are we to submit supportive information, or we're just supposed to do it? Because that can be almost every month. That was the reason that I made the statement, and some of this is probably going to be in our handbooks as well, not just for staff. So we have to, just to back up what I said, we should be familiar as regulations change. And most directors that I know, they try to attend the meetings when there are changes. Plus, we try to have meetings with our child care groups for this. And I think it would encourage us to do more to work together.
Good point, Ms. Sewell. I know a lot of you guys do have, like you say, the chakra groups where you guys share information, and it is a good place to make sure that other directors are being kept abreast of any changes or updates that are going on. So that is definitely a way to help make sure information is spread across the state. So that is a very good suggestion. So thank you for that as well. Are there any other thoughts related to item number 2 in terms of the mandatory trainings? Okay. We're moving on to item number 3, Rule 1.58, Staff Development, Rule 1.582. All child care staff, directors, director designees, and caregivers shall be required to complete 15 contact hours of staff development accrued during the licensure year annually. The National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, a leading organization in child care and early childhood education, recommends annual training based on the needs of the program and the pre-service qualifications of the staff. Training should address the following: A, health and safety; B, child growth and development; C, nutrition; D, planning learning activities; E, guidance and discipline techniques; F, linkages with community services; G, communications and relations with families; H, detection of child abuse; I, advocacy for early childhood programs; J, professional issues. So what are our thoughts on those topics? I think that's a list of sample topics. Are there any other topics you guys feel like need to be added as suggested topics that staff should pull from when looking at professional development? Is that rule pretty clear?
This is Dolores again. Do you need to add in there about the amount of training that can be done in a center?
I believe that's.
It is in there? Is it in
Yes,
there?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's another rule number.
Okay, well, I guess it need to be, I would recommend that it be included somewhere near that so that it can kind of tie together.
Okay.
I don't
Yes,
think
ma'am.
there's any problem with having it listed here too. I think, I think having it repeated is not a bad idea.
Okay. Miss Debbie, I see you have your hand up.
Well, yes, thank you, Lakeisha. I may have just answered my own question. I'm gonna tell you the truth. All these different blocks of training had me so totally confused. You have one set of training, mandatory health and safety for directors, et cetera, so forth, that Lisa's gonna look into. And then now this is the 15 hours. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting. We all do 15 hours per year. The NAEYC, now they're suggesting these topics, but we don't have to follow that organization. We have our own organizations as well. And there are other organizations besides NAEYC. I'm not trying to be ugly, but I think it should be very clear to all. There are no required federal regulations. There are recommendations, and it's up to us to determine how we apply those recommendations. So I'm getting confused, but I think this is the 15 hours.
Yes, ma'am.
The health and safety is the one that's being developed that will be online that Regina was talking about she couldn't get into.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Okay,
the one
so
that's required for every staff member initially
Okay.
with the 3 months of their employment. So Debbie, what if I think maybe if we, like with the heading of this, like if we specified the federally mandated health and safety training that's required of new staff within 3 months, And then for this section, if we said, we could say something about this is the ongoing annual training that's required after the health and safety orientation training and that initial training is completed. Like
You say in addition to, and then these are recommended trainings that you should address. And
Well, yeah, and I appreciate that. If the you know what our language, let me tell you what our language is that we understand. Health and safety training. Have you done health and safety? You got to have health and safety training. Well, we know. What about your 15 hours? Have you done your 15 hours? We all do 15 staff development hours. We know that. So that's how we refer to them. But
Okay.
as it's listed here, it's so academic. I'm just wondering. I mean, it had me confused there for a minute when we were talking about every 5 years and then within 3 months. And so just need to list them as separate trainings and be very, very clear as to what they are.
Simplified a little bit is what you're saying, Miss.
Yeah,
Ellen.
just dumb it down for us, please.
Yes.
God,
Okay.
help us. It's a lot of work for our people may not have a BS degree. They may not have an associate's degree. So I'm just saying we need to simplify it as much as possible
Okay.
and make it very, very clear. And I think Regina was moving in that direction. Make it very, very clear. Just and thank you, Chad. Just label it so I'll know which is which.
Lakeisha,
I also want to mention that it doesn't say anything here about special needs or language acquisition. You know, my background is a dyslexia therapist, and it drives me insane how preschoolers get taught the wrong pronunciation of letter sounds all the time. And that was the one thing I had to fix constantly. And I really think it's important that we learn the proper way to pronounce the letter sounds. I would be willing to teach the class if Lift Ed wanted me to do it or whatever, because it drives me insane.
Well, I'm with you on phonetics, but that should be a separate training.
Oh, absolutely. You can't learn that in one setting. This is just part of the 15 hours. If they're interested in learning on how to teach language, how to teach children the beginning sounds, that's something that needs to be addressed. Especially, we have so many kids with special needs, autism. Every staff member needs to have that training because you never know when one's going to be in your class.
Well, we have different southern draws and dialects from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state. So I don't know if we can ever have a universal or uniform language, but I agree with you on phonetics as a background and basis for teaching reading. But Regina, make sure it's clearly labeled. And I don't know if it should be required. Do you think that should be required, Regina?
No, this is not a requirement. This is just part of your 15 hours. These are suggested courses that you should take. And if you don't teach reading to students or teaching them their letters, you're an infant teacher, you don't really necessarily need that. But, as an infant teacher, what do I need to know that's important? Talking language, speaking to my students, pointing to them, telling them everything that I'm doing. That's all building language. That's all part of it. So,
absolutely,
it starts from the very beginning. And so it's important, but if we're teaching just how to properly pronounce the sounds of letters, that's more of a pre-K teacher course. And, an infant teacher doesn't necessarily need to take that.
Well, it wouldn't hurt them. It wouldn't hurt them to take that because they're forming language. What is it? 75% of all language is developed by age 2. So it wouldn't hurt for them to take it as well. That would be a good course. But it would be one they need to sign up for. And I'm sorry I butted in again. I'm so sorry.
You're giving some good input though, Ms. Ellis, so we appreciate it. Lisa, I see you have your hand up.
And just real quick, just something I just wanted and you guys may have covered this already, but a small specification from CCDF is the health and safety piece. There's a requirement in there about maintains and updates health and safety training standards. So what they mean by that is if you have any changes to your health and safety standards, that should be updated, trained in, the training should show that updated information, if they're making sense. Chad, and Lakeisha, does that make sense?
Yes, and we had a conversation during our last monitoring visit about the training, the topics, and the importance of us integrating this into the overall pieces, because, just like, Carol said at the beginning, there's no way you can cover all of this in this one training, integrating, standards of child development, et cetera, into all of our professional development that we offer.
Right. Right. And things could change from year to year, and as far as health and safety and things that you wanna train on, and best practices and things like that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thanks.
It also doesn't mention social emotional development.
So we would have-
Y'all, I just want to say this. I think we need to be cautious with adding a bunch of topics here, and also with how this needs to be worded, because I agree with everything that y'all are saying. But I think the question is this something that directors need to be taking the responsibility of making sure their staff have, versus asking our licensing officials to try to come in and manage that? I think this is the responsibility of the program. I would say, and I'm not saying that we don't add these topics. We could say something like directors should consider or may consider the following topics to be, to be taken by teachers. However, we'd have to pretty it up. But I would say we just need to be cautious in the way that we're wording this. So I'm just a firm believer that directors need to be taking responsibility for the professional development of their staff. It's not the licensing official's job to manage or police that, in my opinion. They need to be making sure that the program is meeting the 15-hour requirement. It's the director's responsibility, in my opinion. Y'all can disagree if you want to, please tell me if you disagree, but the director should be the one to be making sure that the teachers are getting the topics that are most relevant.
I agree with you, Chad, but I mean, if we're going to say that, if we're going to go that route, the starting from training should address the following, every bit of that should be just taken out.
I agree. Having a minor in reading and other thing, I just think if the health department is basically for health and safety, let them stick to that. And the educational piece, if we need assistance from the Department of Education or whomever, let us go there. And that would not add to the work of the licensing officers. Plus, it would lessen the confusion between licensing officers and directors, because we've had that in the past, and you would have a person with the non-degree and then the person with the degree, and there becomes a big mess and confusion between the two. So, Chad, I think that was a wonderful recommendation.
I think we also want to change the perspective of ongoing education from a have to a want to. I think, changing the culture where, learning more about child development and how to meet the needs of children. I feel like rather than that being a checklist, let me just say this. I've worked in the professional development sector for quite a while, and I think and I'm not pointing at this is something that we as a state have, or we haven't really mastered the best way to do this, but it's somewhat haphazard in the way that professional development has been historically delivered. We're trying to make some changes, to that. But I feel like it's just important that, again, I want directors to see that providing training to their staff should be something that's welcome, not and it may be, I may be a little naive in thinking this way, but I would love to see a situation where we can provide enough training and adequate training that it's actually refreshing for teachers to go to workshops and to learn new things. I know there's things that we've got to iron out. But that's kind of a long-term goal that I would like to see around our professional development system. But I think it starts with empowering directors in making good decisions for their staff. I think that's the first good step in that direction. That's just my opinion.
Miss Debbie, you have your hand up.
Yes, Lakeisha, thank you. I remember once sending my staff members to Grenada to take a course through the Department of Health, and they were supposed to return back to the Learning Tree by 1 p.m. And after they received their morning training, I got a call from them, and they had enjoyed their training so much they asked if they could stay for the afternoon session. And guess what it was? It was hand washing. And they wanted to come back and teach us all how to wash our hands. They were so pumped about hand washing. And boy, that is one of the most crucial tasks we carry out. And it's something that needs to be impressed upon our staff members as well. I have been asking, I think, Chad, the first time I met you, I was asking for the hand washing class from the Department of Health to return. Lakeisha, we're begging, along with I don't know if Regina can teach that class as well, Regina, but we need the hand washing class, especially with this new virus that's taking over the state. So I'm just suggesting that you can never do that too many times. And they enjoyed it. They loved it.
Thanks. I think those are some good thoughts to think about in this section. In terms of how we phrase or eliminate the suggested topics for professional development. Because I agree with what was said. We do want teachers to want to obtain this information. We don't want it to be a have to. We want them to enjoy learning and enjoy getting that information that they can take back and use in their classroom. So good discussion.
I think they like playing in the water just like the children, but they really did enjoy it. And it's so necessary.
Mm-hmm. Like I say, the children make learning fun. So, all right. Any more comments on Rule 1.5.82? Now we're moving to item 4. Rule 1.583, contract hours for staff development shall be approved by the licensing agency. The licensing agency, in its sole discretion, may accept suitable educational credits, programs, or degrees in lieu of those specified in subchapter 5 upon the submission of adequate documentation by the individual.
What does subchapter 5 say?
That's what the staff development is basically saying, that the license agency can accept educational credits or degrees in lieu of specific documentation that's required for the individuals. I think that's referring back up to their requirements to be a teacher, director. Is that right, Teresa?
Yes, Lakeisha, subchapter 5 is just saying that, referring back to those that we just went over, that,
Okay.
We can accept educational credits if they get them, programs or degrees in lieu of those ones that we just went over above.
Okay. So yeah, that would need to be put in simplified language, as Ms. Debbie said earlier.
Yeah, it probably need to be, like you say, simplified for clarity, to make it clear.
So basically just in lieu of your 15 hours. So if instead of me getting 15 hours from Lifted, say I took a couple of courses from the junior college or something, that could be, is that what it's saying?
Yes, ma'am. Like some caregivers, directors, owners, they get CEUs from the college, like you say, and that could be counted towards your staff development hours as well.
So what about if you went to director's orientation? I mean, not sorry. Not director's orientation, the director credential class.
So Regina, there are a list of organizations that have approval to offer contact credit. My opinion with this particular rule is we need to take out the line about the sole discretion, et cetera, and just say something about contact hours for staff development must be from an approved organization. And then I think we need to actually list those organizations here. Because that ain't so like director's credential is offered through Department of Human Services. Department of Human Services, we have standing approval. Any of the trainings that the coaches that through our organization, they have standing approval. The same with any of like the universities and community colleges in Mississippi. There are some I know there are some universities outside of Mississippi, like through their extension service, they offer a lot of online training with early childhood. Like those organizations have standing approval, but I think we actually need to put the list of those organizations that have approval right here. And this would include individual, and then there are individual organizations or individuals themselves that also have applied with the Department of Health to offer professional development training. There's an application process, et cetera. Or if it's too much, I think we should put the organizations with standing approval here. And then I think there should be a list, like on the Department of Health website, of the other organizations outside of those with standing approval that have applied and are approved. So directors have no question about whether they're getting training from somewhere that the contact hours are going to be accepted.
Yeah, it'd be great if that list included links.
I remember when I was a director, trying to track down quality professional development was a pain, but it's a lot better than it was back then. But I know for some directors, especially in certain parts of the state where, it's still difficult for them to find, what they need. That's something else that, we're trying to work on some solutions to.
Any other thoughts on Rule 1.583? Okay. Moving to item number 5, Rule 1.584. No more than 5 contact hours of approved in-service training provided by the child care facility may be counted towards the total number of hours required each year. More than 5 hours of in-service training may be provided by the child care facility, but no more than 5 hours may be counted towards the required total of 15 hours. Any suggestions, concerns on that, on Rule 1.584? Okay. All right, moving down to item number 6, Rule 1.585. All volunteers shall receive at a minimum 1 hour of orientation by the facility director. Such orientation at a minimum shall include a review of the child abuse law and reporting requirements, emergency exit procedures, and the facility transportation policy. Is there anything else you guys think needs to be specifically outlined in the orientation requirements for volunteers?
A discipline policy as well. Do not beat the children.
Very good point. Anything else? Okay. Well, that's all the rules that are currently.
Keisha, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Deb, when you said that, I mean, this isn't about being, but it made me think of something else. What would y'all feel about adding sign in and sign out procedures to this. Just making sure that volunteers understand who, like, when children are picked up, what the process is, like who can and cannot pick up the children. I know that there have been some situations where children have been wandering around parking lots, and it really had to do with the staff member not, if the staff member thought the parent took the child. And anyway, I feel like that's an opportunity for bad stuff to happen if all staff don't understand whatever the facility's policy is around business, or giving children, signing children in and out, just with all.
That goes back to what you were saying before about, the state doesn't need to regulate that. The owner should be handling that, because everybody's different on how they do the procedures, and, it's on them if their staff doesn't know what the rules are.
I feel that should be a part of orientation when you get people in.
And that's what this is speaking to. Like, it just says that orientation shall include, review of child abuse, reporting, emergency exit procedures, facility transportation. Debbie mentioned the discipline policy. I'm just thinking the sign in and sign out sheet. I know, directors are very busy, and that's something that they may not even think about, when they've got someone new. Just
can we give it stated another way other than sign in, sign out? Maybe pick up procedures or something like that rather than sign in and sign out.
Sure, I think that's fine. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe attendance policy.
I kind of like the idea of the sign in, sign out sheets for this reason. When we've had children that have been left at McDonald's or left on the bus and it's because staff, volunteers, etc., have counted children instead of calling roll. If you call roll, you don't leave a child behind. If you're signing the children in and out, you don't leave a child behind. If you're counting heads, you do. So Chad, we could do a whole training on using sign in, sign out sheets to make sure that children have been properly loaded and unloaded from transportation vehicles. So I agree with you.
In the baby room.
That's one that drives me crazy. Regina's is the pronunciations. Mine is just call roll to make sure you have all the children off the bus.
Chad, we can look up how other states sort of call this, for lack of may give you some alternative names that you could look at. Of course.
Any other thoughts from the committee on these rules?
Lakeisha, are you asked?
Go ahead, excuse me,
Sorry.
Carol. I was just thinking of Home Alone. Y'all remember the sister counted heads? Yeah. That's my point.
You make it real, Miss Debbie. Love it.
Absolutely.
Debbie,
My question was,
are you asking for just doing field trips or every day?
Well, they should be signed out every day according to those that were signed in. Those children need to be signed out every day. I think there have been cases even there in Jackson, Dolores, where children were left sleeping in the building and locked up, and everybody went home and the parent couldn't get into the building to get her baby. So it doesn't hurt to do the sign in, sign out sheets. It's easier for them as well, easier for the parents, easier for the staff. And there's a lot of assurances that go into play when you do that. So
And-
I wouldn't matter, it wouldn't bother me if it was every day.
And the thing is, when I used to do training with directors about the sign in, sign out sheet, maintaining your sign in, sign out sheets and doing it correctly is also one of the single best ways to protect yourself against liability. Because if your staff, if you can show that you trained them on the proper procedures, because we had a director one time, the child was actually struck in the parking lot there was a truck was
That's
back.
my pet peeve, is when they just count heads.
Luckily the child was not permanently injured, but the parent tried to sue the facility. Well, the facility had the records where the parent had signed the child out, and the judge ruled in favor of the child care center, saying that the child at that point was in the custody of the parents, and the liability of the well-being of the child rested with the parent. But if that facility had followed the proper signing and sign out procedures, that facility could have been liable in that loss. So just another thing.
I agree with Chad on that.
I get you with that one, Chad, because my policy is once you get the child is your responsibility. And that's in my policy for parents, because they will come in and get them, stand there talking to somebody and let them run out the door. And I have something on my door indicating that, you're liable once you come and you sign your child out. You're liable. The school no longer is liable for your child. And that is to protect me, because they will do it. But still, Chad, we need to do something about these parents signing them in and out. I just had a situation where I had to threaten to call you. And the parent wanted to argue with me about, you come late every day while everybody's walking out the door, and they give you the sign in and out sheet, and you don't want to get out the car. That kind of stuff, it does not make sense. So if you all can please start sending something to the parents, letting them know that they're going to have to sign these kids out. It's just like going to a fight.
I had a question that's not about sign in, sign out. Lakeisha, I didn't know if your invitation for questions was general or specific just to that one issue.
My question was, for all the rules that we've currently covered, were there any more comments or questions from the committee?
I wanted to add, maybe I overlooked this, but I wanted to just check in about language, because we are in a place where there are a lot of Spanish speaking and Vietnamese speaking families. And I don't know if these requirements include something about the need for the materials to be in languages that are spoken by the families of the children enrolled.
That's a good question, Ms. Carroll. I don't think it falls in the training, but it may get into phase 2 when we're talking about policies and procedures and other documents that are required by the center. That is something to think about. The centers are creating documents when they're enrolling families that English may not be their language of origin. So it wouldn't necessarily fall under the staff development, but I do think that is a very important question that does need to be looked at when we get into phase 2, when we're looking at other
Okay.
rules.
I don't feel that
And
that's a
the
regulatory
other
thing.
thing that, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, what you said, Regina?
I said, I don't feel like that's
Sorry?
a regulatory thing that should be regulated by the state. I mean, a good director is going to recognize that she's got students whose families don't speak that, and you want to be able to communicate with them anyway. And so you're going to naturally do that, or at least I would think you would.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe part of the guidance that we've been talking about, not necessarily putting a regulation, but we've been talking about developing some guidance to go along with them. Um, because again, like you say, some people you would, like you said, Virginia, you would think that, but some people don't even think about doing those services. I know I have
Well,
to work in.
and e- even where there's some requirements of the parents to make sure the parents understand what those are, seems like it would be an important thing to ensure.
Yeah, at least making centers aware of
The
the
other thing I wanted to ask, yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask with regard to the topics that are covered by what the requirements are related to training. Going back to one of my original comments, Chad, I wanted to ask about whether we can include in what topics are required training, how just all of the information about CCPP, the application process for parents, the redetermination requirements, the requirements of the centers. I mean, there are a lot of things related to participation in CCPP that seem really essential for those childcare centers that participate in CCPP and for them to get credit with regard to the required training so they complete that and have all that information. It seems like a category of training that isn't, it's certainly not health and safety, but it's part of the operation of the child care center for participation in CCPP. And so again, I'm not sure where that comment is relevant, but I wanted to raise it again.
Carol, this is Dolores. We have enough. And to add, I think that is the responsibility of the Department of Human Services, not Child Care Center. Because in essence, we're actually doing it now. And it gets to be a struggle. And so, we're versed on it anyway, because we have to do this each day, but to just put a pin in it, I just don't want to add to what people are already having to do.
Well, I'm thinking that if you get, the whatever number of hours you're required to do training in childcare, it seems to me that some of the hours you spend learning about CCPP ought to get included in the number of hours that your staff complete for staff development hours, so that doesn't have to be extra.
Those hours do get included as part of your 15. If it happens to be the year that you're taking those, you can use the hours from that. Just the same way you can use your CPR and first aid. And those are, every 2 years you have to do that as well.
But that's not CCPP. CPR and first aid are different.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that it's the same thing. You're required to do CPR first aid every 2 years. You're required to do CCDF every 2 years. So whatever hours you get from that course, which is generally 5, you can use that as part of your 15 for that year.
So what you're saying is that it's up to the center if they want to do it. Am I understanding that they can, if there's a training like that, it would be one of the acceptable requirements? That's what you're trying to say. Am I right?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be?
Well, no, I'm just asking if that's what you're saying. I'm not saying disagreeing with you. Just want to be clear on what you're saying.
Yeah, it is my understanding that it can be used because
Okay.
it's a required training. You can use that as part of your 15.
Well, I
Well,
agree
what
with
I
that.
what I
I
know
agree
is
with that.
that the Child Care Initiative was approved to do child care training through licensure. But whenever we do training on how CCPP operates, it doesn't count.
I don't know about
Chad,
that.
can you clarify?
I mean, I'm not sure why. I'm not really sure why that wouldn't count towards training. I don't know where this is my first time I've heard that. I mean, I would think that that would count towards professional development 100%. I mean, it may not be specifically child development or whatever per se, but CCPP is certainly a program that is very helpful to the families that you serve.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just assessed as being outside the parameters of early childhood education.
So, like Carol, the training that it's like just where you're just explaining what CCPP is and how it assists families. Is that the scope of the training?
For childcare providers. So where there's content with regard to, creating learning centers or one of the domains of early childhood education or something specific to early childhood education specifically, it definitely qualified. But when it went to how to help a parent with the application for CCPP or what to do in the event, how to understand what the eligibility rules are and those kinds of things that were specific to operation of the child care subsidy program were outside the purview of what qualified for the 15 hours of training for staff. But that might be different now. And if it is, that's great.
To me, if an organization has approval to provide training, and as long as the training is around something that benefits the family, serving the families, etc., I mean, I think the contact credit should count.
That's great.
At this time, we're gonna open up the floor for questions from the floor. You can either raise your hand or you can put your name in the chat box if you want to ask a question related to these rules that we've discussed today. Okay. Lisa?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have a couple of comments. I just want to reiterate that I agree with what Chad said wholeheartedly, that as directors and leaders, it is our responsibility to know the training that our staff needs and to ensure they get that. And that licensure should solely be responsible for ensuring that we're following that guideline, that they have the 15 hours, not specifically what those 15 hours entail. My only concern is with the area that said something about NAEYC and its recommendations. My experience has been with sometimes licensure wants to communicate to me in such a way that a recommendation is not optional, that it is actually like what is required. And so I just wonder if this should be like, I know we've talked about like appendices and best practice guidance or something like that. So it's not actually spelled out right here, but it is
more of like a resource that you can go to. Like Debbie was saying, there's many agencies besides NACI that you can rely on to give you guidance as a director of where to look for topics to train your staff on, or to look for training that's applicable to their jobs. That's just my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point. I do like when we talked about taking it out the regs, potentially having it as a part of the guidance for a director who is trying to think of topics that may be good to look into for their staff. Just having it at a list of areas that they can possibly look into for further training ideas. So thank you for that. Kentrell, I see your hand up.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I wanted to also make a comment. I did put a comment in the chat about the training piece. I also agree with Lisa and Debbie about there are so many other resources that are out there for training, especially depending on what your brand is and what your brand focuses on in early childhood. For instance, my school is unapologetically a Christian school, so we focus a lot of our trainings for that aspect that still covers those fundamental skills of learning through early childhood. And so when I present those types of trainings that my teachers receive, whether it's through ABECA or whether it's through ACSI or other trainings that they have done, I'm always getting a pushback from the health department that is not acceptable. So I wanted to see how there is a way that we can make sure that we encompass all types of learning for early childhood, and that it's accepted, whether it's your 5 contact hours for your staff, or it also goes a part of your 15 contact hours. I normally have almost 40 something hours myself as a director because I'm constantly learning. As Chad said, everything is always changing in the world of early childhood. Also leadership trainings that myself and some of my lead teachers take, that we go to conferences that are outside of the state of Mississippi. It's never accepted. How can we incorporate an avenue that those trainings are accepted to go toward our 15 contact hours? Thank you.
Again, I think, Intro, with the acceptance of hours, it goes back to what we were talking about, having a list of those organizations that are approved to offer the training and having links. I'm not sure why, the specific trainings you were mentioning were not accepted. That would be, a conversation to have with the licensing official to see exactly the reason. My guess is because those organizations may not have been approved to offer contact credit. So if there are organizations that are not currently approved, I think that, as child care providers as a whole would like to see, added to the list, that they can encourage the organization to apply, et cetera. But I'm guessing that's probably why. But I think, speaking to your point, making sure that it's very clear to directors which organizations are approved to offer that training, I think is very important. So y'all aren't wasting your time or your staff's time. And y'all, there are people out there, you'll ask them, are you approved to offer contact? Right? Oh yeah, I'm approved. Well, they're actually not. So, but I think having those organizations listed, and, Regina, I think you're the one that said having like links, to how they access the training specifically, I think is also a good thing to add.
Any other thoughts or comments?
This is Dolores Sewell. I'm not calling from the gallery, but I do have a question about Brightwheel. We use Brightwheel, which has some very good training. And we have asked them to submit information, and for some reason they have not. But I'm trying to see if there's a way that if we use Brightwheel in our training for the teachers in-house, if there's a way that we could get credit for that, because they, from the health and safety, from the policies, they have excellent recommendations. And it's just sad, every time we use them, we're turned away and say they're not approved. But this is a national agency, and just like NAEYC.
So I think there, so couple of two points that I'll make. So Ms. Sewell, if you're using Brightwheel or any other company for your 5 in-house hours, those should be approved because you're just using, I think you're probably just using that. I mean, you can offer the 5 in-house hours. And again, as long as it pertains to child development, it should be approved. So I think just clarifying, we could clarify that language in the 1.5.8 about what's allowed for the in-house training hours. And then shoot, I had a thought, but I lost it. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. And Lisa, I just saw your comment about getting organizations approved. So and Lakeisha, if we can make a note of this, that's something that we can get to when we get to phase 2. When we talk about state specific things, let's look at the process for approving organizations that is currently in place. Because just based on y'all's feedback today, I think that's also something that we will need to address. But that's a perfect example of something that we would need to address in phase 2 when we get to the state specific items.
Those were some good suggestions that we need to look at. Anybody else have any other thoughts related to staff development and child development?
Lakeisha, this is Debbie. I just wanted to say I agree with the training being pre-approved or approved by the State Department of Health and/or the Department of Human Services. I have seen firsthand a case of an individual provider who offered training for the child care director certificate. Boy, they were pumping those things out in record time. And I don't know who was taking the final test. It was a mess. And so, see, DHS and the Department of Health see things we don't see. So I don't think they're trying to lock us in. I agree that we shouldn't just list NAEYC, but there's a reason for them wanting to pre-approve the training. So I do agree with that. But some of these programs need to apply in order to be put on the list. And I don't think there would be any problem, Cantrell, with your programs training being pre-approved. You just have to get it in.
Thank you, Ms. Debbie.
We just have to face the fact there's a lot of money to be made and offer training, and we need to make certain that the training is legit. So
and we don't want these companies taking advantage of child care programs in that regard.
I want to say, I think I hear you, Debbie, but I also want you guys to keep in mind when we talk about language in putting in the regulations, you say one thing and then another director that may not be a veteran like me may think that this is all that their staff is limited to. If their child care center that they own and they're the director of And this elevates their brand, and it promotes their teachers, and it gives them more confidence in what they're doing in their classrooms. I think it's up to that director and owner. Each one of my staff have over 30 training hours. I don't limit it just to the state of Mississippi, because there are other national organizations that may not be listed in our health department book, but they're listed in other states that we choose to take our training to. I just don't want anybody to think that they're just limited to trainings that the state of Mississippi offers, or that NACI, ACSI, Association of Schools International, used to be one of the organizations, if it's still not, because I don't see it in the health department, that you could be, you could receive accreditation through them, and they're nationally known. They have great trainings, great workshops, materials that you could purchase that help your children in the classroom, especially even national trainings. Like somebody said earlier, we're dealing with these autistic babies, these children on the spectrum. The state of Mississippi is not the only state or the only organization that offers those trainings. I'm just saying that I think that with your health inspectors, if these trainings are valid, then it should be considered. It should be considered, because that's time and money that we are spending to elevate our own programs in this industry.
I agree with you, Cantrell, and I think the state of Mississippi will consider nationally accredited programs. I think what they're trying to eliminate is programs that don't have any kind of national affiliation or state affiliation, only a local affiliation for a set amount of money. I think that's what they're trying to avoid.
If you guys have any specific organizations that you guys have had issues with, or you think have good trainings, as Chad was mentioning about us possibly putting some links to some that would be approved, you can send those to us at the deccd@mdhs.ms.gov email address, so we can start compiling a list of those. Because if they don't all go into the actual regulations, they can still be a part of that guidance document that we're talking about creating. Because I do think if you guys have access to trainings, like you said, there's a lot of information on a national level and outside of Mississippi that would be beneficial to staff. So if you guys could send that to us, we will start compiling that in our information to look at for the guidance document if there are not some that actually end up in the regs themselves.
And y'all, I put the link to the currently approved, which is on the Department of Health website. But again, I think having it more prominently displayed in the regulations is important. I mean, it's a pretty extensive list. It's 7 pages long. But if y'all can go to that link, just see what's there. Like Lakeisha said, if there are other organizations that you think would be approved. Again, the training does need to focus on on meeting the needs of your children and their families, of course. But there is that. I did include that link if you want to go check that out, see who is currently approved, or if you're looking at this list and you all have had experience that has not been good with any of these organizations, also let's make note of that as well. I do think that this is this specific area, the approval of training organizations, I think is a topic that has given Department of Health some heartburn. I only know that because they've reached out to me a couple of times about some questions about this process. I think we would need to include, again, when we get to phase 2, I think we need to include a more solidified process for not only approving organizations, but the review of this list annually, twice a year, something to make sure that the list is kept up to date and does reflect organizations that are meeting those training.
I have it on the screen, Chad, just in case.
And I've also put the email address in the chat as well if you have any other programs that you feel should be on the state approved list, or that, as Chad has said, you've had issues getting approval from. You can send them to that email address, or you can email me and Crystal directly as well.
And it may be that if we reached out to these organizations as a state agency and encouraged them to apply, we may get more traction that way. Like if we reached out to Bright Wheel, like Ms. Sylvia, you said that you weren't sure if they had applied or not, but maybe if we reached out to them directly and said, you know, we've had a large number of child care providers that would love to see, you know, Bright Wheel or whoever approved to offer professional development in the state. Would you please consider applying? And we can help facilitate that process for those organizations as well.
Thank you for that, Chad.
Any other thoughts regarding professional development? I think we've had a good conversation today. With you guys sharing some great ideas and some areas that we need to look at, either clarifying or just making it a little more inclusive. Are there any final thoughts or suggestions before we close out this work group? Okay. We want to thank you guys for attending today. You guys get an hour back into your day. I know you guys appreciate that. We really do appreciate you guys taking your time out to join us for these work group meetings. You guys are sharing very valuable information that will help us as we are looking to restructure the regulations to make them more user-friendly for providers and licensed officials. So again, we do appreciate you guys taking your time out today. And if there's nothing else, we will see whoever's attending tomorrow for our next group.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
All right.